The trap lurking in the shadow of the ideal, disaster as a living thing. This sutra, which begins by depicting an ideal country, explores the gap between ideals and reality. It shows that maintaining an ideal state is difficult and can sometimes lead to unexpected results. The king and his vassals in this story do not know what disaster is, and by seeking it out, they bring about calamity. It is a story about the desire to pursue ideals and the surprising challenges that arise as a result. Through the king's journey to seek out the source of disaster and the unexpected results it brings, we are made to deeply contemplate human desires, the thirst for knowledge, and the consequences of those actions. Now let's begin the story of the ideal country. Story: what would an ideal country be like for humans? Blessed with nature, bountiful food, no major epidemics. Equal and peaceful, with the flowers of culture in full bloom. Able to enjoy dance and music day and night, living without any worries. If that is an ideal country, there was once such a country long ago. One day, the king of that ideal country asked his vassals,
I have heard that there is something called disaster in this world. But what kind of thing might it be? We do not know,
said the vassals. So the king decided to dispatch his vassals to a neighboring country to buy something called disaster. Just at that time, a heavenly deity was passing over this country, and he heard this story. The deity slightly frowned, but immediately used his mysterious powers to create a human being and had him sell disaster at the market. Its form was a strange thing, as if something was wrapped around and around with iron chains. When the vassal arrived at the market in the neighboring country, he stood in front of the shop and asked,
What is this thing called?
It is called the source of disaster.
The shopkeeper replied.
Is this the thing that will bring us disaster? It was worth coming all the way from a distant place. Our country's king desires disaster. We would very much like to have it. So how much is it?
It is not a cheap thing,
said the shopkeeper.
I have come by order of the king. The king is deeply interested in disaster. Therefore, it doesn't matter if it's expensive. Please sell it to me.
The vassal said and bought the source of disaster at the shopkeeper's asking price.
By the way, what does this creature called the source of disaster eat?
It eats 10 go of needles per day,
the shopkeeper said.
Oh, needles. What an interesting thing.
The vassal said in surprise, staring at the source of disaster. Then he hurried back to his country. Upon arriving in the country, the vassal immediately went to the palace and presented the strange creature to the king. And he reported what he had heard from the shopkeeper.
I see. So it was a living creature that would bring us disaster. It must be a valuable thing. What is its name? It is called the source of disaster, I was told. Oh? Somehow, this thing is starting to look cute. Let's raise it with care.
The king happily received it and immediately issued a proclamation throughout the country to collect needles. The people of the country followed the order and handed over the needles they had. The creature kept eating needles without a single day's rest. Needles gradually disappeared, starting from the castle town and extending to the prefectures, counties, and villages. And eventually, there was not a single needle left in the country. When the needles ran out, the country fell into great confusion. Not a single piece of clothing, shoe, or hat essential for daily life could be sewn, and people had to live naked.
We can't take it anymore. We can't sew anything. We want new clothes. Everything is completely exposed. Please kill that creature and get rid of it.
The vassals and people appealed to the king.
It can't be helped. Do as you see fit.
The king said with a bitter expression. So they immediately took the source of disaster outside the castle and set about getting rid of it. The vassals first slashed at it with swords. But it was not injured, and instead the blades of the swords chipped. When they stabbed it with spears, the spears broke, and when they struck it with hammers, the handles broke. So they decided to pile up firewood and burn it. Then the creature turned into a mass of fire and rolled out, running through the villages, burning down houses, rampaging into the towns, and burning up the markets, and even entering the castle and burning it down. In this way, this strange creature, the source of disaster, brought calamity throughout the country, disrupting people's lives and bringing suffering to all the people. It is good for people to seek ideals and strive to live prosperously. But when a prosperous life is realized, and it becomes no longer necessary to pursue ideals, disaster creeps into people's hearts unnoticed. The heavenly deity made the people of this country pay a high price to let them know this. The specific lessons that can be learned from this story are also highly relevant to us in modern times. The main lessons are as follows. The first is that ideals are not necessarily the best. The story depicts an ideal country, but it shows that those ideals do not solve real problems. In modern times as well, it is important to pursue ideals, but it is important to consider them within the framework of reality and approach them in a feasible way. The second is the importance and risk of knowledge and curiosity. Because the king does not know what disaster is, his intellectual curiosity to seek it out plunges the entire country into chaos. This suggests that when taking on new challenges, sufficient knowledge and preparation are necessary. Especially in modern society where science and technology are rapidly advancing, it is required to carefully evaluate potential risks when introducing new technologies. The third is desire and responsibility. In the story, the king and his vassals act based on desire, and as a result, the entire country suffers. In modern times as well, individual and societal desires can cause problems such as environmental destruction and economic inequality. We need to consider the consequences of our actions and satisfy our desires in a sustainable and responsible manner. The fourth is coexistence with nature. The attempt to eliminate the source of disaster causing further chaos shows the danger of forcibly intervening in the natural world and existing systems. For us in modern times, it is important to emphasize harmony with nature, such as environmental issues and ecosystem conservation. The fifth is responding to change. The changes brought about by the source of disaster question how we respond to unexpected problems and challenges. In modern society, the ability to respond quickly and flexibly to technological advances and social changes is required. This story provides us with universal and profound lessons, such as balance in the process of pursuing ideals, the importance of knowledge, managing desires, coexistence with nature, and adapting to change. On the other hand, when deriving lessons from the story, the following points should be particularly noted. The first is the misery of the ending. The story concludes with the tragic ending of the source of disaster destroying the country and causing suffering to the people. Such a negative ending may feel heavy to some people. Also, a miserable ending does not necessarily become a lesson. The second is the danger of oversimplification. One should avoid ignoring the complex themes and nuances of the story and deriving overly simplified lessons. For example, a simple conclusion like "disaster is always a bad thing" may overlook the deeper meaning of the story. The third is the misuse of moral lessons. One should avoid forcibly applying the moral lessons shown in the story to complex real-life situations. The lessons of the story are often symbolic, and careful consideration is needed when applying them to various real-life situations. Things like trying to teach lessons through disaster should absolutely never happen in reality. The fourth is the importance of diverse perspectives. In the story, actions arise from the limited perspectives of the king and his vassals, but this becomes the cause of unexpected problems. This suggests the importance of considering diverse perspectives and opinions. If opinions had been sought more widely, not just from the king and some of his subordinates, the outcome might have been different. In modern society as well, by integrating the perspectives of people with different cultural and social backgrounds, more balanced decisions can be made. The fifth is risk management. When incorporating the unknown thing called disaster, the king and his vassals did not sufficiently evaluate its risks. This teaches the importance of evaluating and managing possible risks in advance when adopting new technologies, ideas, and policies in modern times as well. In summary, when deriving lessons from the story, it is necessary to carefully do so after examining the content from multiple angles and fully understanding the context and background.